This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Time now for the nationally syndicated radio show, The World of Laurie Zoock. And now, here she is, the smart, the sexy, the savvy, divine Miss C.
And welcome to the show. Now, today, we're going to talk about senior citizens because they often need a little bit of extra help, but a lot of times they just can't afford it. And so today, my guest is Robin Ingles. Robin is the Director of Marketing and Development from SeniorsInService.org, located in Tampa, Florida. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Thank you so much for having me, Laurie.
Well, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got involved.
Okay, my background, I actually have a very corporate background, so how I got to this nonprofit is a little strange. I started out as an accountant. I was the controller for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then I went into software development, and I ran a auto repair franchise business. And then I started my own advertising agency, and I owned that for about 5 years. And during that time, I started doing some pro bono work for this little nonprofit that helps senior citizens. So they needed a marketing plan, so I was helping them develop their marketing plan. So I started out as a volunteer for them myself.
Okay.
And I actually sold my advertising agency and was kind of wandering around trying to decide what I wanted to do now. And they said, "We love the marketing stuff that you've created. We want to hire someone to do it." And I said, "Oh no, they're going to screw it up. So you should just let me do it." So that was how I ended up at this nonprofit.
Very interesting. You did a lot of different things, all to come down to helping senior citizens, which I think is great. Now, how did the organization actually come to be created?
The organization has been around since 1984, so we've been around for a while, and we were originally started in an initiative by Senator Sam Gibbons here in Florida to help. We were seeing the trend in for seniors that they needed to be engaged. People were aging differently now. It was not retire and then pass away. It was retire and then years of active life, and so they needed engagement. And then also we were seeing as the population was aging that people needed more help, and people were far from their own families often. That was starting to become a problem. You didn't live in the same town anymore that your kids did, so they were around. And then, of course, income differences. People have different access to different things. So we started seeing all of these opportunities, and it was really visionary to try and start to put something together in 1984 to handle these societal trends.
Gotcha. And that's a lot of work. I volunteered in the past for nonprofits as well. So generally you have very little funds to try to, do a lot of work to help a lot of people or whatever the organization is. In my case, it was with dogs. Let's talk a little bit about your board of directors and members, who they are, what they do.
Mm-hmm. Our board of directors, our volunteers do work with the school system in all of Tampa Bay, so Pinellas County and Hillsborough. So we have board members who are from the school board, from the school system, and then we also have lots of business people who are interested in senior issues. They're often called to our board because they have an issue in their own life, like they have an elderly parent who needed caregiving, and so they start to see these issues, and they like me, get involved and want to help in a bigger way.
I gotcha. Okay. Who's actually the president of the organization?
Our president, her name is Tammy Criollo. She's a Tampa native, and she came from the Center for Women, so she has a deep nonprofit history. She was there for 19 years, and now she's been with us for 6 now. And so she has a deep commitment to the community and to nonprofit work, and she's really brought the organization forward during her time.
Okay, so it sounds like most of the people have been called in some respect to do this, like you said, because there may be some issue or they're realizing it. I only know a little bit, but I know for seniors, sometimes there are services available, but a lot of them, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, a lot of them don't know about SeniorsInService.org. Now, your organization, are you pretty much local, like you said, to the Tampa area?
We are. We're local to Tampa Bay, so Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. However, some of the programs that we sort of manage and initiate here are available in other cities.
Right, which led me to my next question, which is, are there other seniorsinservice.org or similar type organizations in other parts of the United States? I mean, how would somebody even know?
There are, and we can help you find them. And in the worst case, come to us, and we will help find similar programs in your city. But there is a place to go. Our biggest programs are called the Foster Grandparent Program, the Senior Companion Program, and the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. So if you were to Google any of those in your city, you would find your local affiliate. They may have a different name. They may not be called Seniors in Service, but those programs are a national sort of affiliation.
I gotcha. Who funds these? Is it all? Is it corporations that are funding it, or private people that are funding?
Each town with their own entity that runs these programs has their own way of doing it. But we all have one common funder, and that's the sort of the federal arm of social services. It's called the Corporation for National and Community Service. And so they're a large funder, and then we are required to get additional local funding because to show that the local community is also in these initiatives as well. So there are local corporate funders, there are other government funders. We get funding from the county as well and the city because these are real issues that are being dealt with societally. Right.
Now, how many people? And I don't know if you can answer this, but how many people do you help each year?
For each program, it depends each one, but overall we help close to 1,000 people a year. And when we talk individually about each program, I'll tell you exactly who it is we're helping and in what way.
I gotcha. And what kind of financial transparency does your organization have?
We have an audit that's public, and the document in 990. The document in nonprofits is called the 990. That's a public document that people can view that has all of our financial information. And for example, it shows in our case, 93 cents of every dollar goes directly to program services. So that's what a donation gets. 93 cents of every dollar is out in the community actually dealing with these issues.
Right, and that's a high percentage because I don't know if you've read, people post on Facebook and you see, and I won't name organizations, but some of these very large organizations that are nonprofits that you think are spending most of the money that they're raising to help the people in their program are actually paying their corporate executives, and only a few cents out of every dollar is actually going to help those. So while they may be billed as nonprofits, in reality's sake, to me anyway, that's really saying you're for profit because you're spending almost nothing. And in your case, your organization is spending almost, the 93 cents out of every dollar to actually help the people in the organization, which is impressive. So that means you work on only 7%. So you've got to raise enough money to try to help. That's big. Now, for your program, Seniors in Service, let's talk about what are the age requirements and who gets help?
Our volunteers are 55 and older. Now, we also have some other volunteers. For example, our board of directors, they're all volunteers. And for example, myself, I'm not 55, but I came on to help. So we have these other our mission is to engage people in volunteerism. But most of our volunteers are 55 and older. That's really where we focus. And the idea is that it's from Senator Sam Gibbons' original vision that we have this population now 55 and older that are very active, very experienced, very available, and they want to give back to the community now with their last third of life. And that's the mission. That's the goal, is to engage and use all that energy and vitality.
So I'm guessing that you probably have a lot of retired people that are maybe in their 50s or 60s that are still in physically good health that want to do something. Is that primarily who you're getting to help these older people that I'm going to guess here probably 70s, 80s, 90s, and above?
We do. We actually have the whole spectrum. We have people that as soon they're waiting to turn 55 so they can come volunteer in our programs because they're so excited about our mission. And so they're 55. They some of them are still working. Some of them are retired. And then our age spectrum goes way up. We have volunteers in their 80s, and wow. They will say to us, my volunteering is what keeps me young and vital in my 80s doing this.
Right, because it's giving them something positive to do to help other people. Now, how do seniors find you? I mean, if maybe they don't have a computer, how do you? I mean, you might market on the computer. They might not have a computer. How do they become aware, or how do you reach them when they don't have a computer? What is the marketing plan?
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now in this part of the marketing plan, call us at our office, 813-932-5228. So, and we'll give that again later. But that, just call us right now. We have a staff of 13 people, and every single person of those 13 is devoted to volunteerism, and particularly volunteerism of people 55 and older. The additional marketing plan, we do lots of sort of community outreach where people 55 and older are hanging out. So senior centers, activities that cater to people 55 and older. There are lots of events now. Like we said, the whole society is becoming aware of this age group and how vital and wonderful they are. And
Right.
so we sort of hang out where they are and talk about service. And for this generation, service has been a way of life for them, particularly the silent generation, it's called, the people, the World War II generation. They it was part of their youth, and they served. They went to church. They supported causes. They understood helping neighbors. They were very attached to their community. So we don't have to sort of sell volunteerism as much as present opportunities.
I gotcha. Now that kind of brings me to my next topic, which is loneliness, and that's a reason that a lot of seniors probably don't want to leave their house. A lot of them become reclusive, don't have the family members or friends. Maybe that, one thing here from a lot of seniors is most of my friends have died, or most of my family is not around. So I want to talk a little bit about that and maybe share some actual stories. You don't have to give names, but share some stories about the loneliness factor of it, and then maybe some stories about how you've helped people in that situation. That
is what we see. We see this sort of, as people age, sort of a shutting down. And like you said, maybe their friends are passing away, their family's passing away. Here in the Tampa Bay area, lots of people come here to retire. So their kids are not here, their grandkids are not here. A lot of their church that they grew up in is not here. Their community, they've moved away from that. And only some of them connect again to the community here. And so that's the risk, is that they sort of their world gets smaller and smaller as they get older. And that's what we don't want to happen, because their world can get bigger and bigger with more community, more connection. So that's the focus. The loneliness is what we battle. And also spouses passing away too is very difficult. Someone who's had a spouse for 40, 50 years, and now to not have them, and their lifestyle is completely different. And I'd like to talk in terms of stories about, we do something called respite care as well, which is where we're seeing now in the population where there's a sandwich generation where, say, parents are in the 80s, and then say you're in your 50s, and then you have kids who are 20-somethings and still living with you. And so now this person in their 50s is financially responsible for everyone, emotionally responsible for everyone, and they're carrying just so much weight. And so this is something that we're really focused on, is trying to reach this sandwich generation, to keep them engaged, and then to support them in supporting their elderly parents. And the idea is to bring us all together, So, for example, with our Senior Companion Program, sometimes we'll meet someone who's in their 50s, and they may even come volunteer with us, and we find out that they have someone their parents are in their 80s, and they need a lot of assistance. They have to spend a lot of time with them. They may miss work a lot supporting them, and so their life is just full of stress. So our Senior Companion volunteers go in and spend time with the parents in their 80s and allow the person in their 50s, the child, to get some time of their own so they can breathe, and so they can be more effective in every aspect of their life and sort of lift some of that weight. And that's an example of how we intervene. It's very holistic approach to helping entire generation, entire family. Right, because you have the pressure. I know, because I moved. My mom, fortunately, is in good health, but she moved down here about a year ago, and she's, well, I won't tell you how old because she'll get mad, but she's in her 70s. She's in pretty good health. But when she first moved down here, she didn't have a car. So then I had to, and no problems doing it, but I had to go down and drive and help her around and do the grocery shopping. And so what I found was, I love my mom, but it became a lot of pressure to
try to do that every day and have to deal with the rest of life. So I can see where, having a program like what you're talking about, somebody coming in that maybe can befriend, maybe a lot of these people I think are probably, they need companionship or they need friendship. And if they're not driving, and they can't leave the house, what do you do? And listen, I've heard of programs where, or not even programs, situations where, say, it's elderly people in an apartment complex, and they almost have like a chain where every morning one calls the next, calls the next, calls the next to make sure everybody's okay. And I have a family member I do that with in New York where, every morning basically we text. And one time I didn't hear from her, and I actually called the concierge at her apartment complex to say, I can't get a hold of her. Can someone go up to the apartment and check? Because you don't know if that person has fallen. And now, how do you get that person help, particularly if you're in another state? So maybe talk a little bit like, if you're a senior living here in the Tampa area and you don't have a lot of friends and you have no family in the area, does a senior companion, do they come daily? How do you know that person involved in the program is okay, is that they're alive and okay?
Yeah. Here's the process. If someone needs this type of help, they would call us, and we would go out and sort of assess what you need, because it is a very personal process. This is not sort of a formula that we're plugging you in your health insurance or something like that. This is, there's no charge to the clients, to the people who need help. And the first thing we do is our staff comes out and assesses what's going on with you. What level of support do you need? Is it something where you do just need someone to visit maybe twice a week? You just need someone to visit, maybe someone to run errands with you. We see that sometimes where the person can still drive. They live independently. They can still drive. However, when they go run errands, sometimes they'll get confused or have memory issues. So our companion will go with them and sort of just be there with them and help remind them what's going on in their shopping list and sort of run errands with them.
Right. It's making me think of the silver alerts, because if you have someone that maybe is borderline, and I don't know if the volunteers you send in they probably can sense if somebody has Alzheimer's or dementia, then you might have to get them, I'm assuming, more advanced help. But that's when you see those silver alerts where elderly people get in their car, forgot where they're going, and they're just on the road and they're totally lost and no one knows where they are. And
I think of our senior companions every time I see one of those silver alerts because of that, because this is the key of what we're doing when we know that the clock is against people when they have these things developing, when they have Alzheimer's, dementia. These things are progressive. And so if we can buy them another month, another year, living independently the way they want to be living before the condition gets to a point where they need a different intervention, that's a victory for all of us that we've helped that person. It
is, because most people, when they're seniors and they're in that condition, they don't want to leave their home. I can't tell you how many friends I know that say, my mother will not leave. And they, and a lot of times they are in pretty decent, they're still mentally competent. Now, what happens though if they can't drive? Does a companion actually drive them? Like if they have to go pick up medication or go food shop? What does the companion do? What will they do?
Our companions don't actually drive them, but they can ride with them if they're going somewhere with their errands, or they can run errands for them.
I see.
So if they have a list, if they need their prescriptions picked up, if they need some groceries purchased, the companion can do that for them. That is something that they do. In addition to the friendship, companionship services where they spend time with them. They read, they play games, they, often they like to tell their stories. And so it's someone to hear the stories and enjoy them just as a person.
Right.
And you were talking about the sort of phone tree checking on each other. I hear that from lots of our senior companions that they will call, their client will call them, or they will call their client first thing in the morning or last thing at night. That's the type of friendship and bond that they create, that they check in with each other. And you hear those tragic stories about someone falling, for example, and not being found for some time. And that's what we want to not let happen. We want to connect them with a community, with someone who cares, so they will not end up in that sort of tragic story.
So I'm assuming that a lot of these volunteers that you have truly become friends. It's not, they're volunteering obviously to help the community, but my guess would be they're becoming friends with these people. It's almost like their extended family.
Exactly. That's the part I couldn't have imagined until I started meeting some of these incredibly giving, compassionate senior companions. They're volunteering for their own reasons, of course, but then they do become friends. It's so much more. And that's what they'll tell you, that the volunteering itself and making the friends, what it gives them is so valuable.
Now, are there situations where, let's say you have several volunteers going to several, they each have their own group of people. Does anyone try to connect that group of all those people together to kind of say, hey, we've got, I've always thought, here, let me back up. I've always wondered why, if you have a group of maybe seniors that live in homes that are reclusive and, they kind of shut down, they've lost a spouse, if somehow there was a way to connect them. You've heard of meetup groups where people meet up for a specific reason. Wouldn't it be great if all of these seniors that maybe were more alone and reclusive were able to meet up and then develop an extended family from that? That would be my ideal world.
Yeah, we do try and connect them in that way, and we find, as we get to know them better, cultural things they have in common, or background, or where they're from, and sort of continuing to connect them and network them. And in some cases, for example, low-income housing, there will be like a tower. There'll be lots of people who need help in a tower, and we'll do activities that'll bring the companions and the clients together, and to try and create more of a community within the facility. Because, like you said, in some cases they don't go anywhere. But when they're in that situation, they can have people nearby, and they can connect right there where they live.
Right. I mean, that's a positive. One of the saddest things I think is when family, when their kids or grandkids don't keep in touch with the elderly person. And, you look at other countries like for Japan, for example, where the elders are respected. And then you look at, I hate to say, America, and there's not so much respect for the elders. A lot of times I feel like they're discarded almost as like useless. And I find that a disturbing trend, and maybe it's more so for the younger generation than for me. I'm in my 50s, where I look at my elderly family members and say, these people know everything. In essence, they are walking history books. Now, you and I spoke a little bit before the show, so I sometimes interview famous musicians. A lot of them are elderly. Well, we're going to talk 60s, 70s, 80s. I even had a 90-year-old celebrity on the show. And so when I interview them, it's what they tell me. I get chills because they're telling stories of things that existed back in, say, the 1940s and 50s, and you hear these stories and go, wow, I didn't know. I get chills just talking to you about it. So I think seniors, it's in a way, it would be nice almost if seniors would have some way to memorialize their life. That's their legacy, to say, hey, I was here, and this is who I am, and this is what I did. And so it would be nice if, people would respect their elders in that respect.
Yeah, gathering their stories is really wonderful. And I can tell you, I was talking to one of our senior companion volunteers who was honored this past year by the Tampa Bay Business Journal as a hero at work because he specifically helps with veterans, Mr. Wiggins. And he said to me, one of the things that breaks his heart is when he sees the family members who will do for them but not do with them. And what he meant by that was that he has a client where he can call the son, and the son will send money or whatever he needs, but he won't spend any time with his father.
And the time is what's more important, really, than the money. It's the love. Where is the love for the person that raised you? All right, so tell me a little bit more about this. This is the guy who was the 2016 Heroes. So tell me a little bit more about him.
Okay, and he is one of these seniors that has this amazing story about he went into the military when he was right out of high school. I don't even know if he finished high school. I can't remember that now. But and he's African American, and he broke down these barriers in at his boot camp that he talks about them now, that things he did, and he just did it because that's who he is. But when he tells the stories, it's amazing. Like, they were referred to as darkies and just horrible things.
Yes.
And he stood up to that and said, you must not be talking to me. Made people see him as an individual, and he doesn't even see how groundbreaking that was for him to take that stand, and for other African American males to see him take that stand. And then when he went later on to work in a factory environment, he said that the testing to work in the factory was actually set up so black males would not pass the test, and so then he would go and teach them before they were going to come and teach them the secret to the test and how to sort of do the test. It sounded like it was kind of a physical pulley kind of thing, and teach it to them so they could come and pass the test and get the good job at the factory.
Right.
This is the kind of leader he is.
That's it, and that's inherent within his soul. And I think that's in a lot of people. I like to think that that's in myself. And when I look, and this is a little off topic, but when you look at people and you judge them by their color, their race, their ethnicity, that is ridiculous, okay? Because on the inside, we are all the same. And you're either a person who is good and seeks to do good and philanthropy, or something has happened to you and you're going the other way in the other direction. But it has nothing to do with what color your skin is. And those were a lot of stories I heard from some of these musicians, was about race and segregation and staying in different hotels. And so that just makes me sad that still goes on today. Why, not off topic, but why parents don't teach children we're all the same.
Yeah.
And so that's a little disturbing to me. But I want to get back to seniors in service. But what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Consumers, do you have bad credit? Can't purchase a house or car? Paying too much in interest on your credit cards and loans? Scammed by credit repair companies? There is hope. You can get back on track and do it the right way. Call Credit Education Consultants today at 813-500-6064. That's 813-500-6064. Or go to crediteducationconsultants.com now and get the help you need. Don't delay. Call today. Mortgage reps and realtor inquiries are also welcomed.
Central Payment, your number one credit card merchant service provider in the industry. Providing e-commerce solutions, POS systems, standalone terminals, mobile apps, and much more. Call Central Payments James Carner at 813-777-4332. Looking for the lowest rates in the industry and number one customer service? Call Central Payments James Carner at 813-777-4332. That's James Carner, 813-777-4332.
And welcome back to the world of Laurie Zoock. My guest, Robin Ingles. She is the Director of Marketing and Development for Seniors in Service. So we've been talking about senior citizens and how her organization helps seniors that need help. So one of the things we want to talk about next are foster grandparents. Tell me about foster grandparents.
This is another program that we have where we recruit volunteers 55 and older to help in challenge schools. So what they do is the volunteers commit to at least 15 hours per week of service to go be in a classroom in they're Title I schools. So these are schools where 85% of the kids get subsidized lunch and breakfast. So these are kids that are in low economic areas, sort of have challenges. Our volunteers are there in the classrooms as one-on-one tutors to help them learn how to read and do math.
Gotcha. That's impressive. I mean, I've actually seen Facebook postings where they show the seniors in the school system with the little kids. What I find is not only does it help the kids, it keeps the seniors alive with a purpose in life.
It does. That's what the seniors will tell you, that going and helping kids every day is what keeps them young, keeps them vital, keeps them purposeful. and a child's relationship to someone of a grandparent type, someone of that age, and someone who sort of represents kind of the old school way of doing things. A foster grandparent can say things to a child that they can hear that a teacher may not be able to say, and have a child hear. They can be nurturing in a different way, and they can also be sort of tough lovish in a different way. Like, this isn't how we did it back in my day. You're going to learn to read. They kind of hold them to a high standard, and that actually motivates a lot of these troubled kids that don't have someone at home or
single parent.
Yeah, who's sort of telling them that no, they can do it and they're good enough. And for all the parents' own issues, so that may be that way. But so have this other person in the classroom every single day helping them learn these skills and helping them learn to read is going to give them a chance that they wouldn't have had.
That's it, and that's really key, because if they're going home and maybe they're in a bad home situation, so when you go home to a bad home situation, you're not feeling too good about yourself. There would be low self-esteem there. Then you're going into the school, but teachers are probably limited as far as what they can actually say and do. So that's a great solution. So now you have a volunteer foster grandparent who is, like you said, kind of setting the tough love and trying to encourage them to learn. And that's very interesting to me psychologically, because if you don't have that, that accounts for why we have so many problems in society with children. Can you think of any specific stories?
I can.
With that?
I can.
Okay.
The teachers will tell us often that kind of stress in poverty home life creates social emotional problems where kids can't behave, and to have that foster grandparent that then can pull that child aside, it allows the whole class to run more smoothly. I have one example that. This foster grandparent is actually in a special needs classroom, and so there's a child in the classroom who was deaf, and he, because of sort of just his traumatized young life, he couldn't look people in the eye. So just imagine this child is deaf, he has no way to communicate, and he can't look at other humans in the eye. So total loneliness for this little guy. And our grandparent worked with him, was just available to him. They have training. We train them, but they're not psychologists by any means.
Right.
And they're just available emotionally and there for them. And this little boy, over the course of a few months, learned to look people in the eye, learned to read, became one of their best readers in the classroom, just because he was getting this sort of love and attention and acceptance that he had not seen before.
Now, are the foster grandparents allowed to communicate with the children outside of school, or it's primarily just while they're there?
We try and keep it in school, but we know that happens because we recruit our volunteers from within a 5-mile radius of the school. We want them to live in that neighborhood. We want them to see them at the grocery store and to even, introduce Grandma. They say they run up to them in the grocery store, Grandma, and then they introduce them to their parents, and that they know their lives, and it gives our volunteers credibility that they understand what life is like. They live right there too.
I think it should be in every school, and not just low-income schools. I think it would change the lives of a lot of children, even in schools that are more affluent that still may have the same kind of problems separate from money. It would be I think it's a brilliant way to go about doing it. So hopefully someday maybe what you're doing will spread nationwide and be able to help a lot of these kids. Anything else you wanted to talk about on foster grandparents before I go to the next topic?
The foster grandparent program is very unique, and I just wanted to make sure that message gets out. Like you said, it should be in every school. It should be in every classroom. Every teacher would love to have it. Every grandparent would find a sense of purpose there, and then kids would learn to read or learn to communicate or learn to do math. This is an intervention that's incredibly cost-effective and incredibly effective that we should have everywhere.
It sounds like it. I agree. Now, on your website, I saw something called RSVP Sharing Skills. So can you explain what that is and talk about it a little bit?
Yes. RSVP is the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, and that one is where we partner with other nonprofits to help them with their mission. So we recruit the 55 and older volunteers who have all this experience and all this passion and all this vitality, and then partner with other nonprofits to engage the community. For example, we'll partner with a food bank to help bring volunteers in and help support the food bank and their mission. And this makes us, we're very well known in the nonprofit community because of this. And part of my goal is to get us out into the general public, so more people know about us in general, because the nonprofits, they see us as an asset where we can bring these incredible volunteers. Right. And often they'll be skills-based volunteers. Sometimes, say that same food bank needs help with their accounting, with their books. And we have retired bookkeepers, retired accountants who want to use those skills. They don't want to be in that business anymore, but they would love to still continue to use those skills in a mission that serves the world. And so we can make that kind of connection that can really grow a nonprofit.
Okay. Talk a little bit more about some of these other, or can you name organizations that you've partnered with, and how you find each other? Is, I'm guessing, through some of these events that you go to. Yes,
we partner with lots of food banks. For example, Metropolitan Ministries and Meals on Wheels. Lots of senior related other causes. Lots of senior centers we partner with. There's a place called New Life Village that has to do, it's an intergenerational community that's sort of an experiment here in Tampa Bay, and we recruit volunteers to help with that, to grow that concept where older people are living with younger people and intergenerational sort of interventions.
Talk about that a little, because I've never heard of that.
It's a community. It's something like 36 houses. It's fairly small because it's a pilot program to see if this can work. The intergenerational building of connecting a community in this way. That's something. One of the people we work with.
That's a good idea, because nowadays you see either mostly family communities or senior communities. And so when I can understand to some extent seniors might say, well, I don't want to be as involved in all these activities. I live in a family community where there are some seniors. It's mostly families, but what a good idea it would be if it was back integrated, so that, you have a situation where maybe you have someone elderly living in a home. Maybe one of your volunteers is checking on them a couple of times a week, but boy, wouldn't it be nice if the next door neighbor went, hey, let me check every day, or knock on their door, or give them a phone call and say, hey, are you okay? Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important thing nowadays.
It is, and maybe they can give them, when they're going to the grocery store anyway, give them a ride, give their elderly neighbor a ride to the grocery store. And this creates what we were talking about, where they get to live independently for as long as possible, because that's what everyone wants.
Right, I agree. Now, what is Operation Connect?
Operation Connect is the other things that we do, like helping kids in school or helping homebound elderly. This is specifically around veterans. So we will recruit veteran volunteers to help with military kids in schools, for example, because we find that the military community speaks a language that is unique to them. So maybe a military child, a child in a military family, maybe their parents are deployed. They have unique experiences that a veteran can reach them and help them sort of deal with whatever's going on, or veteran to veteran in a homebound elderly situation, or someone who's disabled and living alone, a veteran to veteran. And that's Mr. Wiggins that I was talking about. He specifically is part of Operation Connect. He's veteran to veteran, because there's a language that they can speak, that they can understand each other. It gives them an immediate common ground. Right,
because they're kind of in a different world. I've had friends who are military brats, as they call them, who moved every other year, and now the kids have to find new friends every single time, let alone the parents having to deal with the same thing. So I get that. What is, I'm going to guess, bill payer? You offer some type of assistance to help people manage paying their bills?
Exactly. We have homebound elderly who it's not a question of giving them money to pay. It's a question of maybe they don't see well, or maybe they can't write as well, and that's the kind of thing that would allow them to not live independently anymore if they can't get that paid. So we have volunteers who will help them, sort of organize their checkbook, make sure their bills are coming, make sure everything's paid, just sort of keep them organized to help them stay independent financially, not with financial support, but with support on how to get all that done, because it can be overwhelming. And imagine if you're getting older and you're not seeing as well, or arthritis in your hands and you can't write. How frustrating that would be, that simple task, what used to be so easy, and you can't get your bills paid.
Right.
And so what can happen then? The tidal wave of disaster that can happen from that simple task not being able to get done.
Right. I thought of that myself. I sit here and go, one day when I'm elderly and maybe I may be in bad shape and I have no family left, what's going to happen and who's going to be able to help me? And maybe a lot of people my age in their 50s don't think that. I think that because I'm sort of proactive and I go, I need to have some type of a plan in place. Now, what happens in a situation where maybe one of your volunteers sees that somebody is getting to the point where they, even with the help of a volunteer, they're not going to be able to help them much longer? I mean, I'm sure there are situations where you see signs, and now what happens to that person, and does your organization assist them to whatever the next step is?
We do. We are very tied in with all of the other elderly agencies. So as someone starts to progress, maybe in a mental condition or just in physical ability, of course we'll involve the family that may or may not be there. It's their decision as a family, but we'll also bring in other agencies to sort of move to the next step, and that's part of what we do to try and transition that easily and see if there are intermediate steps that can allow them to continue to live independently somehow before sort of a full-on, assisted living situation.
Now, what happens if they have, and maybe you can answer this, what happens if they have no family? At this point they're on Social Security and Medicare. Does that typically, if they have no family, no one to help, then do you kind of help transition them to assisted living in that type of a situation also?
We do. We help connect them with the agencies. There are agencies that do nothing but that, particularly for low income or no family support, or that does exist, that type of support. So we help sort of hand them off. And then in some cases, they'll move to a situation like that, some sort of assisted living, and their companion may stay with them for some time to
help them transition?
Yes. So they still have their friend. And in some cases, I'm sure that their official volunteering is over with them, and they stay in touch because they do become friends.
I think that's great. That's super. Volunteers, how do you attract them?
We look everywhere for volunteers. Like I said, we are everywhere that people over 55 like to hang out. And we just describe what it's like to have this feeling of giving back and how you can help someone else. And people are naturally attracted to it. They just need to hear the story. And particularly people 55 and older that are looking at their lives and looking at what looking back, looking forward, thinking about what do I want my life to look like right now, because it seems like you have so much choice when you get to that part of your life. You're not raising children anymore, you're not chasing your career. Now's the time when you can really look at purposeful life. And people think about volunteering when they think about purposeful life.
Okay, do they volunteer? Is there a minimum amount of hours, a maximum? Is it different for everybody?
Some of the programs, the foster grandparent and the senior companion programs, they serve at least 15 hours a week. It's a very, very intense volunteer commitment, and the people who do it say that it pays off in what they get, seeing those kids every day, seeing those same homebound elderly, becoming friends. But then that's why we have the RSVP program, where they can also do senior companionship within that program. Then that's 1 hour a month. It's whatever you want to serve. It's completely open, and it's got senior companionship. It's got mentoring kids in schools. It's got food help. It's got using your skills. It's got everything.
Okay. Let me ask you now, when volunteers volunteer and they're, for example, driving to the schools or someone's home, they're paying out of their own pocket, I'm assuming, to do all that. They're in a situation where they're in pretty good financial situation and they can spend their own money and then just take a tax write-off.
Actually, it depends on the program. We do have some in senior companion and foster grandparent where there are actually some financial compensation that is available for this kind of commitment to their volunteer work, which is wonderful. It's
right.
It's no one is getting rich off of this volunteering, but it is nice to help support, particularly someone low income who wants to help.
Right, exactly.
And to be able to just sort of support them a little bit economically.
I gotcha. Okay. You were talking a little bit about the volunteer positions. So that's right. So the volunteer positions, maybe go through them a little bit more detailed.
Okay.
So when I come to you and you say, okay, I have these positions available, and then I'm assuming you try to find the best match.
Yeah. First thing we'll do is we'll ask, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? What do you feel passionate about? And, you don't even have to know that right off the bat. You can just guess, because we can always replace you. So if you say you're interested in kids, we'll find an opportunity for you mentoring, tutoring kids. If you're interested in homebound elderly or people with disabilities or veterans, we customize it completely, and that's the point of us, is finding the right volunteer opportunity for you to serve.
Okay. Now, a lot of seniors, they can't afford services through Medicare. Is there any way for your organization to relieve some of that financial pressure? Is that, again, going back to other organizations like Medicaid, for example? They'll help connect them?
Yes. Our services are completely free to the clients. But additional services, yes, we can help make them connected, and because we are so tightly, affiliated with all of these other agencies, we can sort of help them navigate, because sometimes that's the problem, is sort of navigating where to get what help.
Okay, now I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but I had looked on your site. The fellow that won the 2016 Hero of the Year award, there was something about 10 keys to success for him. Do you know what those were?
Oh, let me see if I brought the 10 keys.
If you don't, people I know can go on to your site, but it seemed like he developed his own little system, so to speak, that said, hey, this is how I do it. And I think that sets a good role model. His success sets a good role model for other volunteers.
He did. He broke it down in just this way that only someone of great experience is able to do. Broke it down into the 10 rules to live your life. And please go to our website, seniorsinservice.org, to find that.
Okay. Now, your organization also won the 2016 Tampa Bay Business Journal Nonprofit of the Year for Family Services. So congratulations. I think that's a pretty big award.
Thank you.
How can listeners help?
How can they help?
Yeah.
Well, absolutely call us and volunteer. We love that. And, of course, we can always, as a nonprofit, use your financial support. We have an annual campaign going on that you can support either a foster grandparent or a senior companion for just $300 a month. We can get these types of interventions where the volunteer is serving at least 15 hours a week.
Okay.
For just that amount.
Now, people or corporations, I'm assuming, can they sponsor events?
They can, yes. We hold 2 fundraising events a year, one in Pinellas County and one in Hillsborough County, in April and September. And absolutely, we love sponsors. We love corporate sponsors. We love to show how corporate entities are interested in these issues, because they are issues for all of us. And so we can highlight them. They can be part of it. And we're always looking for more partnerships to get the word out, to create more energy around these topics, be part of this conversation that's big.
Right. Now, one of the things I wanted you to talk about, because I know with the organization I volunteer for, you can actually put something in your will to donate money, some of your money, if you pass away, to that organization. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
That's absolutely right, and that's very helpful to an organization like us. If you're passing away and trying to decide, if you're planning about passing away and trying to decide what to do with your money, even a small donation just sort of left in your will can help an organization like ours be sustained over a long term.
Okay, let's talk about some of your upcoming events. What's happening soon?
I'm actually leaving straight from here to go to Plant City to do a food distribution event where we're going to get a whole bunch of people to pack up food for the food bank out in Plant City. We have one coming up in Sun City Center on December 9th. That's a Friday. In Sun City Center, and actually in Kings Point, we're going to be doing a food drive there where we're packing up all this food for the needy people of Waimama, that community, and we're partnering with with 2 other nonprofits. One is Our Lady of Guadalupe Food Pantry, doing great work in Waimama for a lot of the migrant population there, and then also the Mary Petro Fund of the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay. They support seniors in Sun City Center who need medicine or food. So they do medicine and food, and then we do companionship. This is the kind of partnering we do to help people holistically with their whole life.
Gotcha. Now, Seniors in Service, they also offer, I saw that you have an online newsletter. People can sign up and they get a newsletter. Talk about the newsletter. What information is in that newsletter that can help them?
The newsletter is wonderful. It tells stories about what our volunteers are doing, how our volunteers can get recognition, different sort of events we have coming up. We have a recognition event that's a luncheon coming up on December 8th where all of our volunteers come. They get treated like the stars that they are. The theme is Hats Off to Volunteers. And they'll get a sumptuous meal. It's at the Pepin Hospitality Center. This is the kind of thing we do to appreciate our volunteers as well. So that kind of thing is in the newsletter. And then lots of things about the different programs, because some of our volunteers, if you're, for example, a senior companion, you may not know what the foster grandparents are up to. So you'll get to read stories about them and how that group is intervening with kids and this group is intervening with homebound elderly. And so you just get a sense of the newsletter itself creates community.
Right, but when you have these events, all these people get to meet each other, all these volunteers.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that's probably how you get more volunteers and then, talking about it throughout the community. Sort of on a sad note, I want to ask you a question. Do you have to work at all, like with Adult Protective Services? Do you ever have situations where, one of your companions goes in and finds a bad situation?
We do get that, and we have definitely seen that. We just recently had an incident where we found one of our senior companions was started visiting a client, and we found that the client's granddaughter was supposedly helping her with her bills, and she was actually taking her money. So we see it, and all we can do is be grateful that companion came in and intervened there. And so we call the elder abuse hotline there and initiate to support that person. And the client now is so grateful and so much more independent. She was living under this incredible financial stress that was not
her problem.
Really hers, yes.
And it's sad because I actually hear a lot of stories like that. We just got a couple of minutes before we close. Can you just quickly kind of tell me, what are the future goals of your organization?
We definitely want to grow. We want to grow the support of the community. We want to get more community partners, more missions of other nonprofits we can support, and we want more foster grandparents and more senior companions and more volunteers in general. We just want to have more impact because this part of the population is getting bigger, and they're so vibrant and so available in a way that historically has not been the way of people of this age.
Right.
And we wanted to utilize that and give purpose to the volunteers and impact to the community.
Excellent interview talking to you today. I learned a lot. I'm hoping that our listeners learned a lot also. I'm hoping that people step up and do something. I mean, you hear people in different – now you hear in the United States, I don't know if you've heard, in other countries – military service is required. My feeling is volunteer service should be required of everybody. If everybody volunteered 1 hour a week with some organization, this entire world would change on just that 1 hour a week. So I want to thank you for coming today, Robin Ingles. How can you be reached?
If you can find us on the internet, seniorsinservice.org, or call us. What we do is very personal, 813-932-5228.
Very good. Thanks for joining us, and join us again next week on The World of Laurie Zoock.